I've never seen such a scary house before. Inside it looked more like a horror movie set, but ordinary students lived there, in the company of cockroaches, with an empty refrigerator and windows rattling in the wind. I realized it was time to run. A couple more minutes and I would just go crazy there. Hello everyone, I'm Elsa, and I'm 16. Look at me. Skirt, makeup, neat styling, everything like an ordinary girl. But in fact, I'm not as cute as I might seem at first glance. I have an ability that gives guys the heebie-jeebies. It all started a year ago. One evening, my mother and I were returning from ballroom dancing. Suddenly, some guy in a mask came up to us. "Give me all the money and jewelry, quickly!" Mom hid me behind her and gave him everything she had. A purse, family earrings, and a ring that Dad gave her shortly before he died. The robber didn't touch us and ran away, and my mother and I couldn't come to our senses for a long time. Elsa, you have to learn to stand up for yourself, and I'm afraid that dancing is not the best help in this. So I left dancing and came to the karate club. You can't imagine how awkward it was for me at first. There wasn't a single girl in the hall, and all the guys looked at me with disbelief. But later, of course, they got used to me, and even began to admire my success. And I really did well. I was so good at dealing with experienced rivals that a year later, I began to perform at major competitions. There was just one thing bothering me. Classmates found out about my abilities and began to give me a wide berth. At first, I didn't suffer much from a lack of attention, but then Valentine's Day came. In pleasant anticipation, I came to class, but I didn't receive anything an entire day, not even a tiny card. The guys flooded the girls with gifts, and they just forgot about me. They forgot that I was also a girl. In tears, I ran home and decided to give up karate forever. No matter how much I liked it, I wanted everyone to see me as a girl again, fragile and defenseless. Besides, it was unlikely that I would ever need fighting techniques. In 16 years, I had met a robber only once, and such a story would hardly ever happen again. As soon as I quit karate, my life miraculously changed. Max, a high school student, drew attention to me. He was so strong and brave that I felt completely safe with him. My love life was improved, but I still didn't have any friends. Now the girls weren't afraid to be friends with me, but just didn't want to. Surely because I grabbed such a handsome guy. But one day this problem was solved. A new girl joined our class. As soon as Judy entered the classroom, she became a butt of ridicule. What's that on her? How thin, almost transparent. Look how pale she is. At least she could put on some blush. Judy looked really bad. An old sweater and pills, a plastic bag instead of a normal school one, torn sneakers. One glance at the new girl was enough to understand that she came from a very poor family. And of course, I didn't let anyone laugh about it. "Hi, I'm Elsa. Don't pay attention to these conversations and sit down with me." My classmates still remembered my success in karate too vividly, so the ridicule immediately stopped. Judy was now under my protection, and I didn't regret for a second that I stood up for her then. Judy turned out to be an amazing girl, modest, well-mannered, and very kind, so we hit it off right away. On the same day, my new friend invited me to visit her. We came to some tiny dilapidated house. I looked around the barracks and said, "Well, why do we stop? Lead me on." Suddenly, Judy took out her keys and opened the creaking wooden door. I froze in horror. Of course, I suspected that the girl lived poorly, but so much? There were no doors inside, and ugly, holy curtains separated the rooms. Old things were scattered everywhere, and the windows looked as if they were about to fall out of the frame and shatter into fragments on the dirty floor. I went into the kitchen, but immediately jumped on the sofa with a scream. "Cockroach! Cockroach!" But Judy wasn't scared at all. With a smile, she took this disgusting cockroach with her bare hands and threw it out of the window. Goosebumps ran all over my body. In my head, I frantically began to sort out the reasons to scram when suddenly some guy came into the house. "Elsa, meet my brother Brian." I smiled pityingly. Brian looked no better than his sister, but the appearance and the house of the guys were not the saddest. When Judy and Brian invited me to dinner, I was even confused. There were 2 sandwiches with transparent slices of cheese on the plate. "Bon appetit, Elsa! And you? Aren't you going to have dinner?" "We're not hungry." But Judy wasn't good at lying. I caught a glimpse of her throwing away the cheese wrapper and closing the empty fridge. I pretended that someone was calling me, and on the run I said goodbye to the guys. I had never been so embarrassed before. It seemed to me damn unfair that my peers, kind and sincere guys, lived in such inhuman conditions. But I felt even sadder for the new girl and her brother when I returned home. There I had a sumptuous dinner waiting for me. My mother baked my favorite fish. cooked pasta, and salad with seafood. On any other day, I would have dug into these goodies in a New York minute. But then I imagined Judy and Brian chewing thin sandwiches, and my appetite immediately disappeared. I put the food in containers and brought it to school the next day, passing it to Judy. She gobbled everything, thanked me for a long time, and then suddenly burst into tears. Judy, what's the matter? Have I offended you in some way? Elsa, you see, our parents are drinking and constantly disappearing somewhere, and they don't give a damn about us at all. Therefore, at home, well, you saw everything yourself. You're the first one who's been so kind to me, so I burst into tears. That's because I'm happy. My heart sank, but I pulled myself together and told Max about the problems of the guys. Together we decided to help them in any way we could. So Judy and Brian got new clothes, school bags, and some pocket money. Max and I shared with them everything that our parents gave us, but all this seemed to me not enough. And one day I invited Judy to visit for a hearty family dinner. Wow, you have your own room? How cool. What a huge TV. Holy cats, cosmetics. I've only seen these in magazines. Judy was so excited about ordinary things that I felt awkward again. After all, I've never appreciated these things. I recently lost an expensive makeup bag and wasn't even upset, but someone could not even dream of such a thing. I gave Judy mascara and 2 lipsticks when suddenly my mother's voice rang out. Elsa, honey, look what I brought you. I ran down the stairs and saw a huge chocolate cake. Great. I'll just treat Judy. I hugged my mom and was about to invite my friend to the table when suddenly I heard the front door slam. I rushed outside, but Judy was already too far away, and only the next morning I found out why she suddenly ran away. I'm sorry. I saw you and Mom hugging, and I felt very sad. After all, you know what my parents are like. At that moment, I had a plan in my head. My birthday was approaching, and my mom was going to buy me an iPhone. When I came home from school, I asked her for one favor, to give me money this year. Mom, of course, was very surprised, but agreed. After all, the word of the birthday girl is the law. And so on my holiday, I received a precious stack of dollars. You'll never guess where I spent that money. You give up? I rented an apartment for Judy and Brian. Small, but so cozy. Let the guys live in normal conditions for at least a month. When I handed my friend the keys, she almost strangled me in her arms. The day started in the best way possible, but I couldn't imagine what kind of surprise was waiting for me next. Max put a small box on my desk. I quickly unwrapped the gift and saw, brand new iPhone? Wow, how did he guess? For a whole month I was glowing with happiness and couldn't get enough of my smartphone. But one day I almost lost it. That day I carefully put my phone in my purse and hurried home. Max volunteered to accompany me. Along the way we chatted merrily about all sorts of trifles, when suddenly some guy in a mask blocked our way. I started shaking all over. I remembered how such a meeting ended a year ago, but quickly drove away the bad thoughts. After all, Max was with me now. The stranger grabbed my purse with a sharp movement and started running. Oh, my iPhone! I looked around in the hope that Max had rushed after the robber, when suddenly I saw probably the most ridiculous sight of my life, my crash. The strongest and bravest guy in the school ran screaming in the other direction from the criminal. There was no time to think. I ran after the guy in the mask. My heart was pounding, but I just couldn't give up and let myself be robbed a second time. The year of sports victories was still not in vain. I caught up with this bastard and laid him on the asphalt with one blow. That will teach him not to offend strong girls. Come on, now I'm going to look into his shameless eyes. I pulled the mask off the guy and gasped. It was Brian, my friend's brother. Maybe this was some kind of stupid prank? I yanked my purse out of the guy's hand and sat down next to him on the asphalt. Well, and what does it all mean? I expected to hear any story, but not this one. Elsa, I'm sorry. I'm very ashamed. You were the first person who helped my sister and me so much. We are very grateful to you. When you rented an apartment for us, we felt the happiest. We lived among beautiful things, clean and tidy, just like other guys. When we suddenly realized that the month was coming to an end, and soon we would again find ourselves in the hell from which your kindness pulled us out. We were ready to do anything not to come back, so we decided to steal your phone, sell it, and at least briefly prolong our normal life. I couldn't find the words and just went home. I was betrayed twice that day, and these were the people I considered the closest after my mother. That's how Judy and Brian repaid me for my kindness? And Max shamefully ran away as soon as the threat first loomed over me, and if I hadn't mastered karate, everything could have ended quite differently. I would never have found out the truth. I would have continued to give everything to these deceivers and go out with someone who didn't need me at all. Still, I shouldn't have given up classes then in order to please others. Being able to stand up for yourself is a useful skill for a girl, especially when guys like Max are around. The same evening, I went in for karate again and my mood immediately improved. Turned out that I really missed it. You may ask, what about Judy? The next morning she begged me for forgiveness in tears, and I forgave her. But I wasn't going to be friends with her anymore, nor to help her to my own detriment.